Waziri gives to Mwananchi, if Mwananchi are the people in leadership who are insulated from the many problems the real Kenyans are going through, then that can pass. But if Mwananchi is the Mwananchi that we know, this budget is very far from Mwananchi. And as I told you there before, from the start, it is full a lot of inconsistencies. The figures that he gave in terms of GDP growth do not tally. In 2013, the GDP of Kenya was around $55 billion. That's around 5.5 trillion Kenya shillings. Last year, if you actually check his speech, he purported that the GDP of Kenya was around $100 billion by then. Then today he came and told us about $135 billion. What does that mean? That if last year it was $100 billion and this year it is $135 billion, then the economy ought to have grown by 35%. If that was not the case, the economy ought to have done something we call rebasing, that maybe there are some issues that were not incorporated in the GDP. So on that front, it was full of inconsistencies. But also number two, Waziri did not meet the expectations of Kenyans. Moreover, as you know currently, the problems with the people of Kenya now, number one is the issue of cost of living. Number two is the issue of unemployment. There is no special thing that he talked about that is solving these two problems.
No, but Mheshimiwa, even in the question and answer session that we've been able to have with the cabinet secretary, he says that some of these things and some of these measures that have been put in are some things that will be feeling the effects probably in the next 2 months. And this is, he was talking about the fuel subsidy that he says will continue until June. Then there's the question of food security and the resources and the 2.7 billion shillings that has been given into the fertilizer. Will it be truthful for you to basically say that nothing has been done with this regard, or you think more should have been done?
You know, those kind of recitations, we have heard them for the past 4 years. Moreover, it is more than 2 years since Yatani read the previous budget. It is more than 2 years. From then, it is actually close to a whole year, 10 months to be precise. All the things he talked about Mwananchi, instead of solving the problems around Mwananchi, he has actually escalated the cost of living. If you compare June last year to today being April, you compare the living standards of the people of Kenya in regards to the cost of living, the common Mwananchi of Kenya, his disposable income has actually been eaten by the high cost of unga, the high cost of gas, the high cost of fuel. And interestingly, Mreithi, if you check the recent gazettement by Warma, even the cost of water across the country has actually gone up by close to 300% because they have increased the user fee for water users, that is irrigation and domestic, by over 300%. So generally speaking, Mreithi, I think our leaders, the leadership around the presidency, live in some Kenyan utopia somewhere. Maybe they come to visit Kenya in the morning, because the Kenya that I represent in terms of the people of Kiharu, they are much worse off from the last previous reading of the budget. Interestingly also,
so we are going to be seeing you, when this finance bill will be brought into the floor of the House, we are going to be seeing you debating and actually pointing out to some of these issues that are bringing an issue to Kenyans.
Many of those issues we will be debating about them. Number one is the plight of farmers. As you know, and he rightly put it, GDP accounts for the largest percentage in terms of the GDP of Kenya. And to sort about the issues around agriculture, number one, you look at the inputs. Number two, you look at the markets. Even looking at the primary issue about the inputs. Input, you talk about fertilizer. Yesterday or the day, maybe last week, the Minister for Agriculture came out and said that they have subsidized fertilizer. But if you go, do a sample survey across all the NCPB depots around the country, there is no that fertilizer that he purports to have subsidized. Number two, if you reference the State of the Nation address by the President himself this year, actually last year, he talked about coffee farmers smiling to the bank and tea farmers having been paid the highest bonus ever since independence. Those are not even half-truths. They are outright lies. The Mwananchi of Kenya in terms of the farmer is crying. The general population of Kenya, they are met with very high cost of living. And what the CS only did was to recite some things that do not actually tally with the reality. Lastly, I want the CS and the President to reconsider their unjustified force towards the boda boda. Just recently, we saw police harassing our boda boda sector. Today, the boda boda sector have actually been added more muzigo on top of the muzigo they have actually been carrying. Because as you check the today's highlights, the boda boda rider will have a responsibility of having a comprehensive insurance for even the passengers. I think every time you read the budget, we overburden the people at the bottom of the pyramid. That is the farmers and the boda boda sector. This budget had nothing about the common mwananchi. It was a budget about the rich to steal more, to gain more.